Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Don't change your dial. It is a Tuesday edition of the show, but because we are in the off season, we have moved to Tuesday episodes because we won't be having Sunday episodes, at least until next season for the Bucs. So you are right where you need to be. And today we're going to talk about how change is needed in Tampa Bay. What does that mean? Does that mean Todd Bowles? Does it mean some defensive coaches? Does it mean players? We're going to break it all down and talk about some other news as it pertains to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on this show. I'm your host, Matt Matera, joined with me, my fellow co-host of the Pewter Report podcast and the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, are you acclimated to the offseason just yet?
Yeah, I am. I slept for like 10 hours this morning, so that was fun.
Not bad.
Made up for the 3 hours of sleep I got on Sunday night / Monday morning. And so well rested, ready for the offseason. And this is going to be a very interesting offseason. The Buccaneers, they've not officially come out and said one way or the other if Todd Bowles is going to be the head coach. I don't know that they need to do that necessarily, but we're going to be kind of probing them just to see. I think the Liam Coen situation, if there's going to be any interest from maybe the Raiders to Liam Coen, we know that he's going to interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. If there's significant interest to hire him away, I think the Glazers would approach Liam Coen about his interest in becoming the head coach of the Buccaneers, and we could see a coaching change. We kind of went through some of those scenarios yesterday in terms of how the Glazers have at different points in time, whether it's late December, early January, late January, middle of February is when they traded for John Gruden. Matt and I were there at the Palm Beach NFL annual meeting when on March 22nd, Bruce Arians decided to step down and Todd Bowles became the head coach. So with this franchise, you never really know. They could pull a fast one at any moment and make a change. And of course, we're here to dissect and digest all of this information and give it to you guys, regardless of who the head coach is, because you're fans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Correct.
Not just a particular head coach. So we're here all off season long to help you guys learn about the free agents they're going to go after, the draft picks that they're going to target, and the moves that they're going to make, and not just the roster, but also the coaching staff as well.
Yes, very much so. It's not the Tampa Bay Todd Bowles and not the Tampa Bay Liam Coens. It is, in a way, the Tampa Bay Glazers. They do own the football team, the Buccaneers.
That's right.
And I think the Glazers are in a good spot where they can be wise about this. Like, yes, they want Liam Coen back, but if they don't have to promote him to head coach, they don't necessarily have to. Like, in most cases in the NFL, whether it's a player, free agency, contract extensions, or head coaches, you want to be proactive. Right. But in this case, I think it's best to be reactive to what goes on with Liam Coen because
that's right.
Besides the Patriots and Mike Vrabel, really, even Mike McCarthy just got done with being the Cowboys head coach, and he's already lining up interviews with the Bears and the Saints. Right. Liam Coen, we've only heard about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, that can change at any moment, and he starts doing interviews with the Raiders like you just talked about, and maybe a couple of other head coaching vacancies. But if it comes down to just Liam Coen talking to the Jaguars, sure, you're rolling the dice a little bit, but the Glazers can still be like, okay, we're going to sit back and see how this plays out instead of being like, oh my God, he might leave. Let's fire Todd Bowles and make him the head coach. It's almost like the lame kid at school that's like, hey, you forgot to check our homework. Like, no. Chill, keep it down. Nobody needs to know anything at this point because it may turn out that Coen, we talk about it all the time, but if other teams just fall in love with Ben Johnson and maybe some other and Aaron Glenn as well. I always refer to the Lions for whatever reason. Yeah. Maybe the musical chairs works around where it's Liam Coen that doesn't have a seat at the end of it. And then it's like, okay,
very true.
We actually don't have to change anything. And Liam's going to come back and we can kind of run this back for next season and then decide, do we want to stay with Todd Bowles? Do we want to move on and make Liam Coen the head coach? I'm down for Bowles, Coen 2.0 because 1.0 was pretty good, but there's still a lot more room to grow for each side.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if Todd Bowles comes back, and let's say they don't get up to a hot start, or let's say for whatever reason this team gets on the familiar roller coaster ride that starts by going up and then goes down. And we've seen 2, 3, and 1 starts dissolve into 4 and 6 records by midseason, now in back-to-back seasons. And if the Blazers want off that roller coaster ride, and you do have Liam Coen as the offensive coordinator, you have essentially your interim head coach right there. At any point in time, you could pull that trigger. The Blazers have never done it. They've never made an in-season firing before. But you know what? They didn't trade for head coach until they did with John Gruden, right? They didn't have a coach retire on them on March 22nd until they did with
Correct.
Bruce Arians. So there's a first for everything. I've always gone on record saying this team has never made a head coaching change in season, and you know it's a situation where we'll see what happens, and maybe if Coen and Todd Bowles come back for another year and try to do this again, and they run into some rough waters at the start, they may decide to pull the switch in season, and we'll see. The Blazers are unpredictable. It kind of makes it a little fun because they're not predictable, that we don't know what's going to happen. There's a little bit of intrigue here, and as a reporter, that kind of keeps things spicy a little bit.
And I understand the Glazers haven't made an in-season firing before, but are they steadfastly against it? Like, if Todd Bowles goes through another 4 or 5 game losing streak, are they going to be like, no, we can't fire Todd Bowles. We've never done this before. We have to stick with tradition. Well, if that's the case, that's the worst tradition in the history of traditions. So I don't think they're necessarily tied to that. It wouldn't make much sense if they're just fine with consistent losing streaks and not getting over the hump. Now, Todd Bowles, I think, does have the benefit going into this year. And we talked about kind of a little bit of an easier schedule, even though they still are a first-place team. But within the division, once again, it feels like the Bucs are really just battling with the Falcons. Yes, the Panthers can be a little bit of a nuisance and an annoyance, and certainly played the Bucs competitively, at least in that first game against Carolina. And the Saints taking a step back. But this should be a division where it comes down to the Bucs and the Falcons, and I mean, the Bucs lost twice to the Falcons, and they still won the division. So who's to say what's going to happen for next season?
Yeah, and speaking of next season, the Buccaneers have made some roster moves. We'll have that story on pewterreport.com shortly. But the Bucs have made some additions to their roster. They've already signed 17 people. Don't worry, free agency hasn't started yet. That starts back in March. But there were a couple of transactions that took place here. We just got a press release. A lot of the practice squad guys are back. Wide receiver Marquez Callaway, safety Marcus Banks, cornerback Dallas Flowers, defensive lineman Mike Green, offensive lineman Garrett Greenfield, whom the team picked up just recently, linebacker Antonio Greer, linebacker Daniel Grisiak, offensive lineman Luke Haggard, wide receiver Dennis Houston, linebacker Dion Jones, who's back, wide receiver Tanner Canoe, offensive lineman Lorenz Metz, that big 6'9" dude, offensive lineman Raekwon O'Neal, quarterback Michael Pratt, tight end Tanner Towla, running back DJ Williams, and safety Rashad Wisdom. So basically, their practice squad is back, and also including the two notable names there, Michael Pratt, who will be in the running for the backup quarterback job. He'll be competing with Kyle Trask. Trask may or may not return. He is a free agent this year, so he doesn't really have a lot of film to go out there and wow people with in free agency. So there may not be much interest, and he may come back on a cheap 1-year deal with Tampa Bay. That would be my guess, even though he's had to wait for an opportunity because Tom Brady was healthy for the first 2 years he was here, and Baker Mayfield's been healthy the last 2 years. And then Dion Jones, who I thought made a pretty good impression in coverage and had some tackles in the game on Sunday, certainly played more than he had in any other game he'd been elevated for the practice squad for.
He was the name that stuck out to me the most. Now, I know a lot of Bucs fans are going to be like, well, he dropped the interception in the end zone, and he did. There's no doubt about it. I don't mind him coming back, though, to compete for a roster spot, and maybe he just sticks on that practice squad, and if something happens to whoever is playing inside linebacker this year for the Buccaneers, maybe he comes in a spot situation, maybe he comes in on third down, but he was certainly the main guy that really stood out to me. A lot of, like you said, practice squad guys and players that are first and second year players that are still just getting their feet wet in the NFL. But to have a big time veteran like that, especially with the uncertainty of Levante David and whether or not he'll be back, I thought that was a good move.
Yeah, it certainly can't help, right? I think you'd rather start with more bodies than fewer and kind of whittle it down in the offseason. Competition always makes things better. This is an average draft class when it comes to linebackers. I know people are high on Jihad Campbell from Alabama. There are certain people wondering, Jalen Walker, is he going to be an edge rusher, or is he going to be a linebacker, an off-the-ball linebacker from Georgia? I think he's probably better suited to be a pass rusher off the edge than an every down linebacker. He's a good player, but I'm just not sure where his fit is. It'll be interesting to see how he times and how he fares at the testing. And kind of the same thing for Jihad Campbell, too. So there's a couple players that I do like. We're certainly diving into our scouting right now. But, yeah, having Dion Jones in the mix, not a bad thing. The guy's an athlete. He has experience. Maybe he kind of resuscitates his pro career. Used to be a starter. Remember, he ended the Jameis Winston era with that pick six when he was with the Atlanta Falcons, stepping in front of Cam Brady on the first play of overtime in the 2019 season finale. That was it. Bruce Arians had seen enough of Jameis Winston. That was his 30th interception of the year. It was one of those truly classic NFL moments. Jameis Winston becoming the first 30-30 quarterback in the league with 33 touchdowns that year, 30 picks. And boy, what a costly one. And that ushered in the Tom Brady era. So thank you, Dion Jones.
And speaking of Tom Brady, he's sticking his nose in Bucs business just a little bit, Scott.
Yeah, he is. You had a story today. There was a report out that Tom Brady, Super Bowl MVP, co-founder of the Autograph app, has requested to interview John Spytek. Now, that should not come as a surprise to you. We've kind of forecasted that move here at Pewter Report. I did a Pewter Pulse video on Friday. Actually, I think it was Saturday, mentioning that Spytek had an interview with the Tennessee Titans, which he did for their vacant general manager job, but have also some interest in the Raiders. Tom Brady was a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, won 3 Super Bowls with won a Super Bowl in his 3 years with the Buccaneers, and is now a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders. He kind of told Mark Davis, hey, fire Tom Telesco. He's not very good. Fire Antonio Pierce, too. So they're looking for a head coach and a general manager, and it just makes a lot of sense. These guys have known each other for years, dating back to Michigan, where they were teammates. They won 3 years here in Tampa, the NFC South Championship, plus that Super Bowl. So there's some familiarity here. I'm hearing there's a pretty good chance that he ends up getting this job. And we'll see what happens in Tennessee. They're also looking at him. He's getting that second interview with the Titans. If I had to bet, I think he goes to the Raiders. And then it becomes an interesting situation for Jason Licht, because John Robinson, the last front office guy that left to become a general manager elsewhere, and that was with Tennessee in 2016. And that's really what ushered the John Spytek coming to Tampa Bay from Denver move. Well, that departure didn't really hurt the Bucs front office because John Robinson didn't take anybody. But if you're John Spytek, you might want to take somebody with you. And it might be an interesting situation here because the Buccaneers would have a vacant assistant general manager position, right? Because you've got Jason Licht as the general manager. You've got John Spytek as an assistant GM right now, along with Mike Greenberg, who got an interview with the Jets. Haven't heard yet if he'll be getting a second interview or not. But Rob McCartney is the other guy in this picture here. He's in the far right. He is one of the two directors of player personnel in Tampa Bay. He and Mike Beal. And Mike Beal is more in charge of the college side. He used to be the college scouting director before he got the promotion. And Rob McCartney used to be the director of pro personnel before he got the promotion to director of player personnel. And he is the free agency guy. So if Spytek departs, would he take Rob McCartney with him? Would he take Mike Beal and make one of those two his assistant general manager? That could happen because there's only one vacancy for that assistant general manager position. And maybe Jason Licht blocks that by promoting McCartney or Beal. Yeah. Or you could see a scenario where Jason Licht becomes the team president. Mike Greenberg is promoted to general manager. And then the Buccaneers can block Spytek from taking any of the top personnel chiefs by then promoting Beal and McCartney to the roles of assistant general manager in Tampa. So there could be some gamesmanship happening here with the Buccaneers to kind of foil Tom Brady from raiding the personnel side of this team too much. Jason Licht is 3 steps ahead. I'm telling you that right now. You know, he's no dummy. He knows Tom Brady's got a great relationship with Tom, great relationship with Spytek. Obviously, he wants to see his guy, John Spytek, do well. He knows it's time for him to run his own team, but he also has to serve the interests of the Blazers and the Buccaneer organization because that's who signs the paychecks. So Jason Licht has probably plotted for this moment for some time and has already kind of devised some ways to maybe prevent Brady from raiding this team a little too much. So we'll have to see what happens, but it will be interesting to see. I think Spytek probably gets one of these jobs.
I am liking this game of chess, this game of cat and mouse that may, I mean, obviously it'd be better if John Spytek just stays, but you know, you don't want to prevent him from moving up in his career and becoming a general manager, which is a very prestigious thing to have.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I'm the Bucs, I'm throwing a tantrum, talking to the league, maybe not talking to the league, but I'm throwing a tantrum being like, listen, I don't know what was going on when Tom was on the field. He called a number of our games at Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm calling collusion. This isn't right. He's going down there. He's not supposed to be talking to anybody. He's an owner of another team.
Yeah.
And this man gets to go on the field, have conversations
tampering,
with
right?
other teams. Yeah. Yeah. Tampering. I mean, Tom knows a thing or two about that, going back to New England and how they like to cheat the system. So that's what I'm saying. I'm making it out loud. And then behind the scenes, I'm going, all right, you can have John Spytek, but Spytek can't take anybody else. We get to keep our own guys. But it also makes a lot of sense for these Bucs assistants. Yes, you could be an assistant general manager in Las Vegas, potentially, if that's what Spytek wants to do with you. But at the same time, if you could get upgraded to that same role in Tampa, why wouldn't you stay in Tampa? Like the Raiders, listen, we love competition and everything, but the Raiders screwed themselves significantly by winning that Week 17 game. They have the 6th overall pick. The Raiders need a quarterback. Yeah. Likely they are not going to get a quarterback. Now, they need talent across the board. I mean, really outside of Brock Bowers and Max Crosby, there's not a ton of talent on that team, so they probably end up going best player available anyway. But it's not like you're going to a team that has the number 1 overall pick. Like Spytek, it might be a little more advantageous to go to Tennessee, where you would have the number 1 overall pick, and you can find your quarterback or decide what you want to do with that, because we saw the Bears trade away that number 1 pick to Carolina and stockpile a number of picks.
Yeah.
John B had a great comment before. I love it. Thanks. Spytek does his boy a solid and sends Max to Tampa. Yeah, that would be very funny. Yeah. And like we talked about before, Spytek and Brady have that relationship. I mean, going back to Michigan, Brady was a redshirt senior. Mm-hmm. Spytek was a freshman playing on the Wolverines. So, a relationship like that goes very far back. But again, the Raiders, like, they're in a division with the Chiefs, who don't look like they're slowing down anytime soon as long as Patrick Mahomes is there. You have the Chargers, who just made the postseason and are really only going to get better. I mean, once they find some more weapons on offense, even though Justin Herbert's a little overrated, in my opinion. So that's a tough spot to go to versus, again, the AFC South, where outside of the Texans,
that's right.
You're not really threatened by the Jaguars. You're certainly not threatened by the Anthony Richardson and the Colts. So
yeah,
a lot of things to weigh, and we'll see how the Bucs play it out. I do try at this point. You have to trust Jason Licht. I mean, all the buttons he pushed, most of them work. So it would stink losing John Spytek, but I trust Jason Licht to have plan A, B, C, D, all the way down the rest of the alphabet.
Yep. We love Spytek, friend of the program. He's been great to Pewter Report throughout the years.
Yeah.
I hope he's getting the job. I really do. He deserves the opportunity to run his own team. And at the same time, too, it just creates opportunities for advancement for guys within the organization. Mike Beal's been here for a long time. You talk about the drafts that this team's had. It starts with Beal. He has boots on the ground. He is in charge of the scouting staff. Byron Kiefer, they just work the draft exceptionally well. Spytek is in the mix as well. He oversees Beal and McCartney in draft and free agency. Jason Licht, is the one who brought Mike Beal in. So it's like there's a lot of guys. Rob McCartney is probably the most underrated and under talked about member of the front office. He has big brains. I mean, you talk about free agency. His team has made some great free agent moves, some savvy moves, and he's been at the heart of it too. So there are a lot of guys. Byron Kiefer's one of those guys. He's a Bucs lifer. Used to grow up reading Buccaneer magazine back in the days from St. Petersburg. His dad's a huge Bucs fan. He's been in this organization starting as a college scout. Now he's the senior executive of personnel. And Shane Schiano is another up-and-coming guy on the pro side, works right hand in hand with Rob McCartney on the pro personnel side with free agency. Jason Light's roster is deep and talented in the front office.
Yes.
And he can afford to lose a guy or two. You don't want to, but he can afford to because he has really just drafted those scouts well. He has found the scouts that find the players that make him and this organization look good. And we'll see what happens. But we kind of saw this move coming at Pewter Report. Would not be surprised if John Spytek is the Las Vegas Raiders general manager.
You don't want to lose Spytek and a couple other people, but that's the nature of the business. But as you said before, the Bucs make a lot of good moves, and you can make a good move as well by picking a Celsius energy drink to consume. Of course, Celsius is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com, and they have a billion trillion flavors for you to choose from, and they are all delicious, whether it's the Arctic Vibe, the new Playa flavor, which is a pina colada. You see the sparkling watermelon lemonade on the screen there as well. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address and it'll tell you the closest place where you can pick one up. Might be a Walmart, a Piggly Wiggly, a Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you realize you love Celsius and you want more and you want to buy it in bulk instead of just buying it one or two at a time, you could purchase it over on Amazon with the Subscribe and Save. I'd recommend the Variety Pack so you could try all the fantastic flavors of Celsius, and you can have it set up to go to your place of residence whenever you want, just at your leisure. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. There's the Playa flavor, the Playa Vibe.
I call it Playa because I feel like a
Playa works too.
It's pina colada flavored, and it tastes just like a pina colada. Of course, no alcohol, but it's fantastic. So make sure you check it out. Celsius, they always come up with new flavors, and that's a new favor around here. A couple of comments here from Richie P. Exactly, Scott. He deserves it. It's a compliment to what Light has been able to do here. And AJ says, if the Bucs lose Spytek, Andrew Greenberg, along with Coen, they'll quickly revert back to the Bucs of 2003 to 2019. Yikes. Let's hope not. I think there's enough people here in this organization that can hopefully fill those holes and all of that.
Plus, you have the players. You have the players here, and the players are under contract, whether it's Baker, the offensive line. So I understand the concern, but the players are already here.
Yeah.
And the defense can't get much worse, so you're only going to sign players this offseason.
That's right. Yeah. Lionel Laura says, if I'm late, I'm sorry, I'm sure Light has more good people in mind should he lose Spytek. Yeah, we rattled off some of those names. It's going to be an in-house move. I don't know that John Robinson necessarily comes back because I think Jason likes the people that he has in the building right now. And we'll see. I mean, it's speculation, but I think that these guys have been here a long time, and he's promoted these guys every chance he could. And of course, Spytek leaving allows for another promotion for a very worthy member of the Bucs front office. So, and that
no
could
doubt
be one
about
of the,
it. And
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that could be one of the changes coming, but that was not really the topic we were kind of going to get to today. We were talking more about some changes that might be coming too, that they'll be voluntary from the Buccaneers. And, you know, they could be looking at making some assistant coach changes. I think this team needs a mentality change, and I'm writing about that in today's 2-point conversion. Had a lot going on yesterday, and so it took me to today to really kind of form my thoughts and channel what I wanted to say. And I feel like this team really needs to have kind of a killer instinct, and we've talked about it at times. The Peter Pulse on it back in the midseason, and when you look at that loss to the Commanders on Sunday, especially on defense, and what I mean by killer instinct is getting off the field. It's killing drives, either with a turnover, forcing a takeaway, or a turnover on downs on fourth down. They did that a couple times, right? They had 2 of those fourth down stops, but they allowed the Commanders to get 3 conversions, including a touchdown, which wasn't good. And they need that. And you know, I was here during the Greg Schiano years, and Schiano used to kind of get made fun of by the local media. I didn't, because I kind of liked what he was doing, to be honest. Not with the toes on the line thing, right? But with his practice, he would have this thing called like the turnover circuit, where the players would go around and go from kind of station to station in about a 10-minute period. They would spend about 10 minutes making those stations. And so they would rotate. So the defensive line would go to a fumble recovery station, and then a punch out the ball station, then interception station, then a scoop and score station. And they would just kind of do this for a couple minutes, go through these drills. The whistle would blow. Everybody would kind of rotate. It was kind of Pop Warner-ish. It was kind of high schoolish. It certainly came from Rutgers, like from college, right? And but you know what? It worked. If you go back and look at Greg Schiano's 2 seasons with the Buccaneers, in 2013, which was not a good year for Greg, he started off 0-8. Everybody wanted him fired. And he ended up winning 4 out of the last 8 games and finished 4-12, right? So he got fired. Understandable, certainly given how the team played. But if you go back and look at that 2013 season, he had 21 interceptions on defense that year. 21. And the team also forced 17 fumbles. And it's just kind of crazy how that defense, which did have Levante David, it did have Gerald McCoy, for example. You had Mark Barron was on that team. Keith Tandy, Mason Foster was the middle linebacker. Jonathan Banks was a slow corner. You had Dakota Watson, Deshaun Goldson. Those are some of the names on that defense. Adrian Claiborne. It wasn't really a star-studded defense, but man, they could take the ball away. And you know, here you've got Antoine Winfield Jr. and Yaya Diaby and Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea and Levante David, Zion McCollum. You've got enough star caliber, physical talent, good athlete, great athlete guys that are going to be this team's nucleus going forward. And Matt, I just didn't see the level of commitment from the defensive coaches and Todd Bowles in the training camp practices or OTAs to really emphasize taking the ball away. I just didn't see it enough. A lot of it was alignment and assignment, and that's where it starts, right, on defense. Alignment and assignment. Got to get in alignment, got to get the right assignment. It's the mental stuff. But it seemed to me, with all of the install periods and all of the neck up periods, that Todd Bowles, who is a cerebral, heady, high football IQ guy, and he appreciates that about his players, this team did not attack the ball enough. I did not see enough drills where you had guys going for the ball, trying to strip it, trying to force fumbles, recover fumbles, bat passes down, break up passes, intercept passes. And I think it came back to bite him this year.
And it's not just doing those drills. It's what type of drills are getting done. Because we've heard Kevin Ross and some other coaches be like, they got to get on the jugs machine. They got to do these X amount of jugs machines. Well, first of all, I mean, I remember in training camp too, and maybe they do it at different times, maybe after the media is gone and stuff like that. But, you know, we'd be done with the press conference with Todd Bowles after training camp and then start heading inside. And I'd see maybe 2 or 3 people on the jugs machines. And as far as the starters go, the only one I saw really was Antoine Winfield Jr. And it probably speaks to why he was an all-pro player last year and really only injuries derailed him this season. The only other guys I would see are wide receivers and defensive backs that are, you know, fighting just to make the practice squad, who kind of have to be out there to show face, to show that they are doing stuff. And again, maybe they're doing it behind the scenes. Maybe Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum were at different times. I can't speak to that. But also, I mean, as you see in the NFL, interceptions come in so many different ways. And I know Dion Jones kind of dropped it where he's just standing there and he could have caught it. Especially if you're a cornerback, you're running, you're keeping an eye on the receiver, you're keeping an eye on the ball at the same time. Maybe it's a go route, maybe it's a slant over the middle, maybe it's a tipped pass. Like, there's so many different ways that interceptions come about, and it's hardly ever just you're standing there and going and making a play. And Bowles will say over and over, we got to hold on to it. We got to hold on to it.
They need to practice it. I mean, I'm sorry. It's like
it, and they're not even getting like pass breakups.
Yeah. I have yet to see a jugs machine on the field in an NFL game. I don't think it's allowed, right? I mean, I just don't. I don't understand. I mean, I understand working on your hands, right, in terms of looking the ball in. Like, I'm not saying they're completely worthless, but it's not realistic. It's not. It's you know, you could do a jugs machine with punts, and that's actually more realistic. It shoots the ball way up in the air. You can aim it. You can make it deep. You can make it high. You can have it like a line drive. You can do a lot of things. And I'm not saying like it's worthless in terms of catching the ball if you're a defensive back or a linebacker or whatever. But there's angles, there's trajectories, there's different things.
Different spin.
Yes.
Righty versus a lefty throwing it.
Exactly. And almost like the 40-yard dash times. They're not useless at the combine, but like I don't see guys not wearing helmets and shoulder pads, right?
Yeah.
In the games, I would love to see the combine say, we're going to do the 40-yard dash and you need to suit up and then we're going to measure everybody. I'm done with the underwear Olympics. It's not going to change. I'm not going to get my way. But I just think that let's make it as realistic as possible. I actually gave Johnny Manziel some props.
I was thinking that.
Right?
Shout out to Johnny Manziel for doing his pro day with the helmet and shoulder pads. I love that.
Exactly. I did too. You know, terrible quarterback, but I love the moxie and the guts to go out there and do that. And so my whole thing is when you see these players come off of training camp practices or OTAs, and, you know, there's no shoulder pads on them and there's no helmet. Sometimes they'll wear a helmet because they don't get the ball in their face. But they just stand there and catch the ball and they do it 50 times and say, oh, I worked on my hands today. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. There's tracking the ball, right? There's tight coverage, right? There's maybe get better at pass breakups too, by the way, right? This team allows so many completions to be had and hardly any pass breakups, it seems. So to me, those are the things that I'd like to see really change. And you need new coaches to come in with new ideas. And I think Todd Bowles has got to focus on creating takeaways. If he's going to stick around as the head coach and the defensive play caller, he has got to have these guys practice tackling the football because there's an art form to that. There's a reason why Levante David has more forced fumbles than anybody in the Bucs organization. But he doesn't have to be the only one. You know, like Yaya Diaby had a fumble recovery this year. And if you go back and look at the Hall of Famers this team has, Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Warren Sapp, all 4 of them made plays on the ball. Sack fumbles, fumble recoveries, punching the ball out, interceptions. And if you want to be a great player, tackles are good, sacks are good, but getting the ball out is really what matters. Shaq Barrett, in his prime, was one of those guys. 19 and a half sacks, Matt, 6 forced fumbles back in 2019. The guy had 3 career interceptions as an outside linebacker because he just had a knack for being around the ball and creating takeaways. In this team, they need to foster that. They need to find ball hawks in free agency in the draft and bring them here. This team relied on Antoine Winfield Jr. being superhero in 2023, and injuries robbed him of that superhuman ability this past year. And it just, there wasn't anybody else that could take the ball away other than Antoine. And that has to change next year.
Right. That's been an issue for the last 2 seasons. This wasn't just something that came about this year. And getting turnovers can buy you a lot of slack as well. Because there are certain defenders out there who take the ball away. Now, they get burned too, but it's like, hey, they got 6 interceptions this year. Like, we can work with this.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen in the NFL, just playing corner. You're going to get beat at certain times. But hypothetically, what if Jamel Dean was getting 4 interceptions per season? We're probably having a little bit of a different conversation than what we've talked about with Jamel Dean. But he doesn't take the ball away, and he gets injured. If it was, hey, he takes the ball away, but he gets injured, then again, it becomes a little bit of a different conversation during this offseason.
That's right.
I truly think that the Bucs at practice this year, whether it's training camp, OTAs, or during the season, like, have either your third string quarterback or one of your assistant coaches that has a pretty good arm, and have the corners like run their coverages. And again, it could be an assistant coach as a wide receiver or a practice squad wide receiver, and have the corners and the DBs and safeties and everybody and linebackers, really everyone, and have them run their coverage, what they're going to be doing on certain plays, and have them intercept the football that way. Have a righty, have a lefty if you end up playing, Tua and the Dolphins, which they do play the Dolphins this year. Like, have all these different angles, different ways to view the game and work on it that way. Because what they've been doing has not been successful. They've found ways to get to the quarterback. They still end up, in the top 10 in sacks, but the turnovers, I think, truly has been dastardly for this team over the last 2 years.
No, you're right, and a lot of it too is the mentality, right? It's the mentality that you kind of have to have on defense. It's the it's the killer instinct, and I mean kill in the most root sense of the word, killing drives. You have to be the guy that's going to kill the drive, whether it's the sack fumble, whether it's the interception, whether it's the pass breakup on 4th down. Whether it's the key stop in the trenches on 4th and 1 and they're slamming up the middle. Like, you have to be that guy. And I get the sense that, in talking, and we were in the open locker room period yesterday, and, there's a couple of guys that I think really want to be that guy. And talk is cheap, right? Talking is one thing. You got to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. But these guys have the ability to do that, and I'm kind of rooting for them too, because this team does need some fire starters. It needs some guys that they can really be that type of impact player in crunch time for the Buccaneers. And if you're a longtime Buccaneer fan, those Hall of Famers I was talking about. There's some other guys too. Donnie Abraham, the Iceman, was one of those players. You had Hardy Nickerson back in the day as one of those players. Jason Pierre-Paul was a Pro Bowler, helped his team win a Super Bowl. He was an impact player with those impact sacks. Simeon Rice should be a Hall of Famer, but he's not going to be. But he's one of those guys. But in talking with Yaya Diaby and Sassier Dennis, 2 of the young guys from that draft class in 2023 that are going to be some cornerstone pieces going forward, I feel like they know that this team needs to level up, right? And we saw Yaya kind of come on down the stretch, had a slow start to the season, but he was nails against the run and then really started to come along against the pass. But like I told him yesterday, it's one thing to get sacks, but it's the sack fumble. That's the key play, and he understands that. And so I asked him, I said, when it comes to killer instincts, do you have enough killers on this defense? And this is what he said, and I quote, "See, that's the thing. I feel like guys do have the killer instinct, but when things aren't going your way, certain guys will get down on themselves. If you're a killer, you're always going to bring it. You're always going to bring it no matter what. If they knock you down, you're always going to bring it. I feel like everybody needs to look at themselves in the mirror this offseason. Man, we have a hell of a team. I honestly believe we can beat every team in the league. If guys really look at themselves in the mirror and know what we truly need to do to improve, we'll be fine." And I like that mentality.
Great quote.
Yeah, it is. And he he admitted it. He knows this team needs more of that. And there's some guys, and he didn't name them, but I know who they are, that wilt, that don't have that killer instinct, and they're not going to be here next year. And Jason Licht knows who they are too. So that's a good thing. So that's another thing that has to change. Then I talked to Sassier Dennis, who ended the season on injured reserve, but showed some flashes of promise in those first 4 games. Actually had a sack on Jaden Daniels in the season opener, and was probably the best linebacker in coverage until he got hurt. This is what he said when I asked him about the killer instinct on this team and the level of it. He said, in this game, this is Sassier Dennis, in this game, you have to have that mentality no matter what. You always have to have that, especially on defense. On offense, it is what it is. But on defense, you have to stop the guy across from you. If you want to be a great player or a great defense, you have to have that mentality. Kill, kill, kill. And I like the way he said it. And, this is a team that is hurt by this loss. They did not expect to lose. They expected to win, and they didn't. And this hurts and this stings. And I'm hopeful that this loss becomes a driving motivator for the defense, especially, to fix itself. And they're going to have to add more pieces. There's no doubt. But they're going to have to fix what they have here. And each guy's got to level up. And they got to have the killer instinct and the killer mentality to get off the field.
It's kill or be killed, as they say. And it's easy to be a front runner, right? When you're up 20 points and the team has to throw it, it's a little bit easier to get an interception, get a little cocky, make a big hit and not have to worry about it, if you miss or if it's a penalty or something like that. So I think it's great points by Yaya and Sassier Dennis, and it'll be very interesting with Sassier Dennis because in practice, in some joint training camp, stuff like that, Sassier was taking the football away. Yeah. And he was probably their top coverage inside linebacker until getting hurt. And he got hurt very early in the season, so it's tough to say like how it would have played out the rest of the year. But maybe he can be one of those killers. Maybe he can be the guy that, at least in the linebacker room, leads the way with a couple of interceptions that really the whole defense wasn't able to get. It kind of remains to be seen at this time. But I think you're definitely looking at 2 motivated guys in Yaya Diaby and Sassier Dennis. Dennis specifically, just based on his season getting cut short, that maybe are future leaders of this team, along with Kalijah Kancey. Yeah.
I don't know about this, Vernon. I disagree with you a little bit here, but is this real talk? Our defense has the talent of a bottom 10 NFL defense. Bowles makes them look better. I want to see many cornerbacks and linebackers in camp next season. I don't know. I think those core guys, Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, Yaya Diaby, Winfield for sure. Zion McCollum. There's 5 out of your 6. Tyke Smith. Yeah, there's Tyke. There's 6 out of 11 right there. You throw Sassier Dennis, what we've seen in the mix. That's 7. That's a pretty good start. You need linebackers and corners, no doubt, and that will be a priority for Jason Licht and this front office this offseason. I'm not going to disparage Todd Bowles. I think that he is. I think he's a good defensive play caller. I think his assistants are letting him down. I think Todd needs to be pushed. I think Todd needs to be, and maybe this is a wake-up call for Todd Bowles. If he ends up staying, I would be so disappointed if he returned with some of these assistants because I think that is part of the problem. And I'd love to see him bring in some new blood, some younger guys that can push him. And you know what? It's one thing. And it's like, I run Pewter Report. I've done this for 30 years, right? I ask for input from Matt and Bailey and Josh and Sly, and you guys give it to me. I don't look for yes men. I tell everybody at Pewter Report, I'm not looking for sidekicks. I want superheroes, right? This is the X-Men. This is the Avengers. Everybody has something to bring to the table. And it should be that way. I have a picture, and maybe I'm wrong, but Todd has coached with so many of these guys for so long that they all look to Todd and they kind of defer, right? And he's kind of been the ringleader for so long that he's got a bunch of sidekicks and not enough superheroes in that room. Then you look at Liam Coen, who only coached with who? Brian Picucci at Kentucky, right? I guess he coached with Carberry, but they were colleagues. It wasn't like Carberry was working for Liam Coen. Carberry was working for Sean McVay. So there is some give and take there. Liam Coen has been very explicit at his press conferences. We ask him about the collaboration process, and he says, I spend more time in the offensive meeting room with all of the coaches rather than just in my room, my office. And I like that. And it creates accountability. It creates everybody wants to have a buy-in to the offense. It's a very collaborative process. 7 brains in the room is better than 1. And I would love for Todd to find some younger guys to bring in. Maybe grab some guys from college, some new, fresh ideas, right? And can you imagine the exchange there? Let's say you're some hotshot defensive coordinator in college, and you get tabbed to come to Tampa Bay, and you get to learn from Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
And then Todd Bowles gets to learn from you. That's what Monty Kiffin did with Joe Barry and Mike Tomlin. He grabbed them from the college ranks, right? And look how it worked out. I mean, they won a Super Bowl together. He replaced a couple old dogs in Herm Edwards and Lovie Smith with Mike Tomlin and Joe Barry, who was a damn good linebackers coach, and Tomlin was a damn good defensive backs coach. And then he brought in Raheem Morris, right, who was Tomlin's assistant. That's what Kiffin did. Kiffin was an old dog who brought in young coaches to help him in the process. And it was a great give and take. And I really think Todd Bowles needs to do that. There's just too many guys old and long in the tooth. And he needs some guys that aren't yes men, that will challenge him, that will come to the table with new ideas if Todd's going to stay.
And we've seen how the college ranks has been successful for the Bucs, like Liam Coen, like Brian McClendon, the wide receivers coach. So defensively, there's a couple of us in the media room one day. This is like a month or two ago, and Greg Auman brought up a really good point. He was like, the assistant coaches, they know how to coach it the way that Todd likes it, how Todd wants it to be ran.
Yeah.
And, that's good to an extent. But what about after that? What else is coming to the table? And I think that's the case. I mean, long in the two, like they have coaches that are like wearing hearing aids and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to be like disrespectful, because I think it's lame to like just make fun of old people. Like everybody gets old. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like the game has passed a couple of coaches by. I don't want to name out anyone specifically, but.
Well, we saw that here with Lovie Smith. We saw that with Mike Smith, right? The two guys that were coordinators.
Just don't be named Smith and be a defensive coach.
Right. Yeah. As Daniel King says, the defensive coaches are too much. This is the way we've always done it mentality. That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And you know what? If I had that mentality, we would not be here doing Pewter Report TV. Why? Because I would still be doing a printed product called Buccaneer Magazine, and we'd be out of business, right? We have evolved. We don't even do print products anymore. That's how I started.
Yeah.
Started with Buccaneer Magazine, and then became buckmag.com, then Pewter Report and pewterreport.com. Now it's Pewter Report TV with our podcast. Our podcast started out with an audio version with Mark Cook and myself and Trevor Sikkema and Matt Matera and Trevor Jenkins. And it's evolved to this here on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, right? With also streaming on Spotify and iTunes, et cetera. And we're streaming live on X and Facebook. So you have to adapt or die in any business, but certainly in the NFL.
No doubt about it. Hey, we got a number of super chats to get to as well.
Let's get to it.
Says, I still have my PR magazines. Don't want to keep you guys waiting, but had some great conversation as well. Yep. So thanks, everybody, for your patience. And let's start with these super chats, beginning with Bart Harley Jarvis. Thank you for the $6.99, who says, SR, if you had to make a prediction right now on what they do with Bowles, what would it be? Oh, just stay tuned for the PR Roundtable.
Stay tuned for the PR Roundtable coming up later tonight. Along with my new 2-point conversion. So make sure you check out pewterreport.com. If I had to, I would say right now, 51-49, they're probably going to move on from Todd Bowles if Liam Coen gets interest elsewhere. And I think to Matt's point, I think that's the key driver in all of this. I think they're waiting to see how it plays out with Liam Coen. Does he get an offer from Jacksonville? Does he get another job interview request from the Raiders. How much in demand is he? I think that's their priority. Don't lose Liam Coen. And if they can get away with keeping Liam Coen by keeping Todd Bowles, then I think they do that. That's the easiest move the Glazers can make.
Yeah.
If they feel like there's a threat that Cohen's going to leave, then I think that will force their hand and they will make the switch. That's just.
I think it's important to specify as well. If Coen comes back, it doesn't mean Bowles is entirely safe. Like, I would have a very short leash.
Yes.
When it comes to next season for Todd Bowles.
Absolutely.
If he's back.
Yep.
Bar Harley Jarvis has also been a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 2 months. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, shout out Antoine Winfield Jr. Please. Good. Keep Dion Jones with the lack of depth at inside linebacker. Yeah, I'm not saying I saw other people freaking out about it. Like, I'm not saying he should be starting. I'm just saying, like, fourth string, fifth string inside linebacker. I think there's a lot of worse ways you can go with it.
I totally agree. Yeah, I'm with you.
Bucs Basement, thank you for the $5. Says, after what Bowles said yesterday in response to changing the staff, I don't have faith he's going to fire his yes men, and that may be what gets him fired.
I think they're going to have to force his hand. I don't think he wants to. He's friends with these guys, right? I mean, it took a lot for Raheem Morris to fire Jimmy Lake, his defensive coordinator, but somebody had to fall on the sword. And I don't think that he said, hey, I want to fire Jimmy. I think there was ownership or, the general manager that told him to. I mean, they're friends. Jimmy and Raheem are like this, and they were excited to work together again after having several stints here in Tampa. Remember, Jimmy was the defensive backs coach here under Raheem when Raheem was the head coach, and then Jimmy was Raheem's assistant defensive backs coach under Gruden. So that took a lot, and it's going to take a lot, I think, for Todd to fire some of these guys. But they need to go, and general manager Jason Licht needs to say, this is my effing team, and I know you're in charge of the coaches, but I'm in charge of you, and I'm going to force this move. And that's happened before. I'm not going to go into it, but I know that's happened before with other coaches. So, and credit Jason for not overstepping his bounds, but doing what is necessary to better this team. And I think it should happen. I think it will happen.
Something needs to be done. There's no question. There's no question about that. And yeah, his response was more of just like, it's too early to get into all of that. I don't know if it's necessarily, hey, I'm keeping everyone.
Yeah.
So, Josh Ortiz, thanks for the $5, says, is there a scenario where the upstairs office asked Baker for his input on who would make an effective head coach for the 2025 season?
No, he's not Tom Brady. He's Baker Mayfield. Baker knows his role.
Right.
He's, if you're going to talk to Baker, maybe have him watch a little college film and say, we're thinking about this receiver. Who do you like? I mean, I don't know. I think Baker likes his teammates.
Yeah.
I think Baker's...
It's a lot of like just picking his brain. Like obviously when they were considering Sterling Shepard, why wouldn't you talk to Baker Mayfield in that situation? But I don't think they're going to be like, well, Baker, like this guy played for Texas, so there's no way Baker can play with him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to be the case.
Yeah. Hey, I hate KU, but I love to keep Talib. That dude took the ball away. So my college allegiances end at the draft. If there's a Jayhawk that can help this team, bring him on.
Right. Like, if Baker can work with a rival school and they win a Super Bowl, I think he's all for it.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Logan Valente, thanks for the $5 super chat. Good to hear from you as well. As Logan says, just moved to Lakeland and tried walk-ons for the first time and was not disappointed. Yeah. Thanks, SR and Matt, for all you do for us Bucs fans. It was a fun year. Well, thank you, Logan, for the $5 super chat. And thank you for supporting our sponsors as well. That's awesome that you had a great time over at Walk-Ons.
No doubt about it. And no matter what happens, whatever the outcome is of the games that you like to watch, the outcome's always going to be fun, food, and football over at Walk-Ons.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered Walk-Ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger. Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy. And speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. Head straight to Walk-Ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-Ons for the win.
Hey, it's Tuesday. You know what that means? all day happy hour. So you don't have to rush there. You have to like leave right now, the office or your house to get to Walk-Ons. You can get there at 6, 6:37, 8 o'clock, whatever. Have a late dinner, but do it at Walk-Ons because they have all day happy hour, which includes $5 Tito's and $3 happy hour pours, $3.99 domestic pints, $4 house wine, $5.49 22-ounce domestic draft, $6 fried pickles, and small waffle cheese fries. Folks, you can make a meal out of those. $7 Boom Boom shrimp and queso dip, $8 boneless wings, and cheeseburger sliders, my absolute favorites. I'm waiting for them to do the mozzarella logs back on the happy hour menu, though, because I love those too. They're fantastic. If you can't make it today, that's fine. Tomorrow, they've got 2 happy hours from 3 to 6 and 9 to close. Same on Thursday, and then Friday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with the happy hour. It's just the best happy hour in Tampa Bay. They've got 3 locations. One over there in Midtown Tampa, close to Matt in the stadium. One up here in Wesley Chapel by me. And over there in Lakeland, make sure you check out walkons.com for more, including driving directions. And you're not going to be disappointed. If you have not tried Walk-Ons yet, do it. Do it now. Get to them. Try the food. You like it.
ASAP.
Channel my inner Arnold there, but do it.
Like
It's really
always
good.
down for some Arnold Schwarzenegger on the show. We're a pro Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Henry
Gigante. Terrible. Henry Gigante. Thank you for being a YouTube channel member for 5 months. Says Todd Bowles must bring in fresh, innovating assistant coaches for this defense. Todd Bowles saying his current staff is great is extremely troubling.
I had to ask the question. I understand the coach speak from the podium. He's not going to throw his guys under the bus there. He's not going to ruffle any feathers by saying, I think at the very least he might have said, we're looking at everything. Everything's on the table. I think that probably would have been as far as Todd could have gone or wanted to go, knowing him. But I just hope that there's some changes because we've seen the impact of what good offensive assistants can do and how quickly things can turn around in these position groups, the offensive line, the running game, the tight ends. I mean, good grief, man. Kate Otten looks like a completely different player this year.
So
Payne Durham, Devin Culp at the end of the season. It can be done quickly just with a good coach. Justin Fields is a fantastic tight ends coach, and that showed itself this year.
Saw immediate strides for not even just the tight ends, the offensive line, everything. Tristan Vorbeck, thanks for the $4.99 super chat, says, who do you think would come in to be that vet in the secondary? Slay, Pat Peterson, Jordan Poyer, or possible vets at any defensive positions?
I think they're looking at vets, but Jason Light typically does not like to go like older vet. I think the only place he would consider that would be maybe edge rusher, like a guy like Khalil Mack who's still doing
Khalil
it
Mack,
at his
I'm telling
age.
you, come back to your home state, Khalil Mack. That's
Hassan Reddick.
That's what I'm putting my stamp on.
Yeah, I think those are some guys up front that you can kind of get away with. But when you're talking mileage, like you're talking covering dudes downfield, wide receivers, he's not going to look at guys 30 and older, I don't think, for safety and cornerback and all of that. So Patrick Peterson, no way. I can tell you that right now for sure. No way. You want a guy in your prime if you're playing corner, and you're going to pay a guy.
Yeah.
You're going to want a guy 24 to 28, 29 maybe. That's about the max. I think that if you're going to invest big time money, it's going to be for a guy that can run in his prime. Remember, this team plays in Florida, and this team has had its share of hamstring injuries, so you don't want to bring in an older guy. It's going to be more susceptible to those. Remember, Jamel Dean's 29. Okay, he's had hamstring and knee injuries, and he's missed 4 games last year, 5 games this year with various injuries. Zion McCollum's
going to get worse.
24 years old, and has not missed a game in the last 2 years. So, there's that.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse for Jamel Dean. I hate to say it, but if he's already injury prone, I don't think immediately he's going to get better. And the Bucs have tried that route before with an aging veteran. Now, it was more desperation just based on everybody was injured, but they tried it with Richard Sherman a couple of years ago, and he got injured like 2 games into the season, or 2 games into his own season because he signed on a couple games into it. And then he was out for the year. So
that's right.
Michael Larry, thank you for the $1.99 super chat, says Zack Baun in free agency. Well, he sure knows how to intercept the football.
He does.
After getting one against the Packers in the wild card round the other day. So I'm all for it.
I love Zack Baun. I think he's a fantastic player. He would be at the top of my list. Still in his prime, young player, big time ball hawk, producer. Has had to bide his time. Remember, he was in New Orleans, didn't really do much there, and he's blown up elsewhere. So yeah, I would be after him. Great length, great in coverage, can blitz, tackle. He can do it all. He's going to get a king's ransom, but he's definitely one of the players I would consider for sure.
UK Prince, thank you for the $4.99, says, hey guys, really quick, compare Les Steckel and Liam Coen, probably our best offensive coordinators historically.
Yeah, I mean, Byron was technically the play caller, but it was Tom Brady running the offense. So I don't know. I was not a Byron Leftwich fan. Could you tell?
Right.
The condescending press conferences, the cluelessness in 2022. No, thanks. Hard pass. So yeah, Les Steckel was good. Les Steckel was interesting because he came from a military background, and he had this thing called the penalty path. And he was a little bit like Schiano before Schiano. So if you false started or jumped off sides or whatever, if you lined up in the wrong formation, he would make you run laps in practice. And the players hated it. Like I remember Mike Allstott one time flinched in training camp practice, false start, and Steckel blew his whistle. He was like kind of like a drill sergeant, blew the whistle and made Allstott run a lap around the practice field. And it's kind of like demoralizing, and it's kind of like inhumane treatment for a professional player. It's in high school or Pop Warner, right?
Right.
But you know what? Penalties went way down. It worked. It actually worked. And so I will never forget that. And the players didn't really like that approach and style, but I don't care. I like effective shit. I like shit that works. And so to me, I was fine with that. He put the points up. He kind of like choked in that playoff game up there. I think the Eagles won like 31-3 or something. They just couldn't block Hugh Douglas off the edge. But he had a good offensive mind. I just don't know in those pressure moments, he was the cool cucumber that you have to be when the bullets are flying and you got to make the calls. I think he wilted under pressure, and it led to him having some friction with Dungy, and he was gone after 1 year.
Joel Elrican, thank you for being a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. Just joined. You already were too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
a lot of times it's the got to put a new credit card in because mine expired kind of thing. I had to do that the other day. Yeah.
Always a shout out to you, Joel.
Always shout out.
And a big thank you to Black Gold 1999 for this 1999 super chat, who says we need Warren Sapp as defensive line coach ASAP.
If I'm fantasizing about football, Warren Sapp is my defensive line coach. I love Sapp. Literally one of the smartest, most football IQ guys I've ever been around. He gets so much credit for being outlandish, a badass, a talker, strutting around, nasty player. But football IQ is there, man. And I saw Colorado's defensive line get better this year on that Deion Sanders coaching staff. He would never work for Todd Bowles, though. I think that's a two-way street. He would never want to work for Todd Bowles. I don't think Todd Bowles would necessarily want him to work for him either. Casey Rogers is one guy that I would keep on. And I think that this might be the compromise. If you're Jason Licht, and I'm not saying Jason's going to do this, but if I was Jason, I would. Or if I was the Glazers and I was going to keep Todd Bowles, but under the condition that he makes some changes on the coaching staff, I would say you need to get rid of George Edwards, outside linebackers coach, and you need to get rid of cornerbacks coach Kevin Ross and safeties coach Nick Rapone, and we'll let you keep Casey Rogers and Larry Foote, your co-defensive coordinators. Foote is in charge of inside linebackers, and boy, did he have to do a lot of work this year getting all those guys ready to go. After losing Sassier Dennis, the wheels kind of fell off the wagon, right? And Casey Rogers, listen, he has developed Kalijah Cansey and Vita Vea and Logan Hall this year, turned him into a player. I don't have any problems at all with Casey Rogers. I think he's a good coach, and he is actually Todd's best friend. And sometimes you need an ally. Sometimes you need that close confidant. I get that, but having too many cronies is not a good thing. So I would say, yes, keep Casey Rogers and keep Larry Foote, but you need to make some changes elsewhere. That's what I would do if I was running this team. Would I love to have Sat back in Red and Pewter coaching the defensive line in my fantasy world? Absolutely. I think it'd be phenomenal. And I think he would do a hell of a job too. Even though he's a bit of a wild card as a human being. I love Warren though. But I don't see it happening with Todd Bowles here. And I don't have a problem keeping Casey Rogers given the results, man.
Yeah, it feels like just a clashing of personalities. And obviously, Bowles' connection to Casey Rogers. I think it's a good trade-off, though, with, if you get new cornerbacks and safeties coaches, but you keep the positions that have been working, essentially, which is really just defensive line.
Right, right.
What are you laughing at?
Warren Sapp would not be a yes man. Todd Bowles. I'm thinking about those meetings where Sapp would be like, "WTF, Todd?" You talk about pushback. I think Sapp would be the kind of guy that would give you some pushback. Sapp would certainly
could be a mutiny.
Could be a mutiny. Yeah, well said, Matt. Well said. Yeah.
I am intrigued where Sapp might go because, he's only at Colorado because of Deion Sanders, and now there's the rumors that Deion might go to the Cowboys. Would Warren Sapp go with him? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Richie P, thank you for the $5 super chat. As Richie says, I'm with you, Scott. Khalil or Hassan, and draft the guy in the first again.
Yeah. Flood the position, draft and sign guys until you have that position overflowing, right? I mean, look at the Eagles, with their defensive front. I mean, they've got, first of all, half of their defense is from Georgia. The other half are first rounders. Some of those guys are both. And you can never have enough good talent, especially in the trenches. And so, yeah, I'm with you. If Chris Braswell ends up being your fourth guy in the rotation, and he's kind of like a developmental guy, and maybe in year 3 he becomes the next Logan Hall, where after this year and then a year after he blows up and all of that. But you can't go in to this season with Yaya Diaby as outside linebacker 1. Love Yaya. I think he's got a bright future and potential. You have to safeguard. There has to be that baseline protection, that safety net that says if Yaya doesn't ascend or if he gets hurt, we have to have other guys that can rush the passer and get there. And so you bring in a veteran, whether it's Khalil Mack, whether it's Hassan Reddick, and then you got to draft another one. I'm with you, Richie P. Draft another one, because what happens if you bring in an aging veteran and all of a sudden the wheels fall off the wagon, he gets hurt or is ineffective, then at least you have another guy that you've thrown into the mix there. So, yeah, to me, if you draft a guy and you make him duke it out with Yaya for number 2, and then the loser is number 3 in the rotation, Chris Braswell is number 4, and that free agent that you brought in, he's number 1. That would be the ultimate, and they'll probably have 5, right? But that would be the ultimate top 4 right there.
I wouldn't really trust Hassan Reddick. I mean, all he wants is a contract. I don't know how motivated he would be after. It didn't work out with the Jets. It seemed like he kind of lied as well, being I'll come in and do whatever, and then was like, you know what? On second thought, no. He didn't provide anything with the Jets, so maybe he was only comfortable in the Eagles system. Where Khalil Mack, on the other hand, he's dominated everywhere he's went. The Raiders, the Bears, the Chargers. So
well said.
That's why I'm team Khalil over.
I'm with you. Yep.
Trey Cloudier, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Do we have confirmation the Glazers have met with Bowles since the Commanders game? I'm thinking they are waiting to see if Coen gets offered a head coaching job.
Yep, that's what it seems like. I listen. It has been radio silent. One Buccaneer place. Nobody's talking. Nobody's saying anything right now. They're waiting. And again, we'll remind you, this is not Glazer. This is Glazers, plural.
Correct.
Brian, Joel, Ed, Darcy, and then the 2 other owners who aren't co-chair people, but they're owners as well, Kevin and Abram. There's 6 people that need to kind of work this out and come to a consensus. This is a big decision. 3 biggest decisions for any franchise. Who's the GM? Who's the head coach? Who's the quarterback? It all starts there. If you don't have those 3 in alignment, you're not winning a Super Bowl. If you have 2 out of the 3, you might make a playoff, but you're not going all the way. So it's a big decision. Not surprised at all. This could take days. It might even drift into next week. And you'd like to hope that if the Glazers do settle on Todd Bowles, they put out some kind of statement saying, we're thrilled with the job that Todd has done, and we're looking forward to winning a fifth straight NFC South championship, 4 under Todd, and let's go Bucs. Buy your season tickets. Like I could see that type of press release. I'd like to think that is the case. Otherwise, you're going to have national and local people like us speculating on Todd Bowles' future until there is some kind of action or statement to really make that declarative.
That is the case, but also they don't need to do that statement until Liam Coen is figured out as well.
Yep.
Derek Danger, thanks for the $4.99 super chat, says, I'm at the point where I want to 1v1 Todd. If I win, he goes. If he wins, he still goes. Well, what's the one-on-one? Like, you can't really do one-on-one football unless Baker's the quarterback and you have you as a corner and Todd as a receiver, and you guys go back and forth.
Are we talking hoops?
Is it
this
video
an Oklahoma
games?
drill? Is
Is
it
it a
Madden?
wrestling match? Yeah, maybe it's an Oklahoma drill.
I'm wrestling.
I'd watch that. So, Derek, please clarify maybe in the comments after what type of 1v1 or one-on-one are you going up against Todd Bowles? Because I'm intrigued.
No, I am too. I'm absolutely intrigued, and we'll see. One thing that is intriguing, folks, is hurricane season. And thankfully, we're out of it. We're not in it anymore. But I will say this, hurricane season, when it comes to Florida, everybody gets all up in arms. We thought we dodged a bullet last year, didn't we? I mean, it was like September until it was October, right? October is when these hurricanes came.
October, yes.
Yeah, we thought September passed. Okay, good. We're out of danger and all that. All of a sudden, 2 hurricanes hit the Tampa Bay area and caused a bunch of damage. And really, it was a bit of a comeuppance for some people. And I don't mean that in an ugly way. It was an awakening, probably the better word, for people who thought, well, my house got flooded because of the tidal surge, but I have hurricane protection. I've got homeowners. That should be okay. No, you're not. If you live in a flood zone, you need to get flood insurance. Otherwise, your homeowners basically doesn't cover that. And a lot of people don't know about that. I didn't know about that until Brier Grieves told me. And that's why I'm telling you about Brier Grieves. If you're a longtime Pewter Report podcast listener, you remember the late, great Mark Cook telling you about Brier Grieves Insurance. Well, I listened to Mark, and I'm asking you, please listen to me. Give Brier Grieves a call. I became a Brier Grieves customer years ago. What I like about them is the personal touch. I know my insurance agent. I know John Grieves, the son of Brier. I know John. I talk to John and get him on the phone, and we can talk through policies. And he's a great advocate for me when it comes to the insurance agencies, getting me the right coverage at the right price. And that's important. So I want you to visit BrierGrievesInsurance.com and see for yourself. They're a family-owned business. Their main goal is to help people, helping people find the right insurance policy for the right price. So whether it's home, auto, boating insurance, business insurance, turn to Brier Grieves and get that personal touch and customer service that sets them apart. As the 2 recent hurricanes have shown all of us that live here in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area, and even the Gulf Coast of Florida, there is a cost to living in paradise. Brier Grieves can help you make sure that you've got the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure that you and your home are protected. So visit BrierGrievesInsurance.com today. That's Brier, B-R-I-E-R, Grieves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, or call their office, 813-876-4166, and tell them Pewter Report sent you.
Well, this was another fun show.
Yes.
And the beauty of it is that we get to do it all again tomorrow at 4 p.m. So please join us on Wednesday afternoon. In the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video, too. And a lot more content to come from PewterReport.com on several different platforms. So, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.